Highly successful individuals are always focused on what's next, but they often don't take time to reflect on their journey and how far they've come. I'm Craig Heatherly, host of the Path Less Traveled podcast, where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary leaders. Their success rarely follows a straight path, and that's what makes their story so remarkable. Now let's dive into this week's episode after a brief message from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Mosier Consulting, the powerhouse behind some of the most innovative technology solutions in northern Indiana. For 30 years, Mosier has been delivering best-in-class solutions. If you're a leader in your company, Mosier is your partner in progress. With deep expertise in analytics, AI, managed services, Microsoft, IT savings, and strategic consulting, they don't just support your tech, they elevate your entire business. Mosier Consulting, technology experts, real results. Visit MosierIT.com to learn more. Looking for top talent in tech or professional fields? Avero Talent connects businesses with exceptional candidates, specializing in tailored recruiting solutions that match the right skills to your team's needs. Whether building a team or searching for a tough-to-fill position, Avero Talent delivers the expertise you need to hire smarter, faster, and with more confidence. Let us help you find your next star employee. Welcome to the Path Less Travel podcast. This week we feature the president and CEO of South Bend Medical Foundation, Tim Travis. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tim, I want to go back a couple of years here, up to the November 2022 timeframe. You're from Kentucky. You spent a majority of your time in Louisville, and now South Bend, Indiana. I guess what drew you to South Bend Medical Foundation, and maybe even what excited you about this opportunity?
Yeah, so born and raised in Kentucky. Good amount of my life in Western Kentucky, where there's not a lot of anything, particularly jobs. So a lot of folks from my hometown either end up in Louisville or they end up in Nashville. Spent a long time in Louisville in healthcare for the most part, and just gaining experience. And pathology and lab medicine in particular, that's a small world. And you meet people as you go along, and you gain a reputation. You hope that reputation's good. And I had met a few people, and they put me in touch with somebody else that was recruiting for this position here. And, it's kind of the rest is history. So what drew me here, I think, was mainly the ability to be able to have more autonomy in the position. I was working for University of Louisville before I came here. And when you're working for a public university, it's a quasi-governmental space. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't give a lot of room for autonomy or growth or anything else.
So the impact here that you've had in about 3 years, about 3 years now. What, as you look back, I guess what excites you about the progress that you've made year to date, and then maybe even what's exciting about what's coming up?
Yeah, so I've been here since November 7th of 2022. And when I came, the financial situation of the organization was less than desirable. I'll say that they were about a $15 million revenue organization, and they were losing about, I think the year I came, top line it was about $7 million.
Wow!
So today we should end this year roughly $30 million in revenue and probably a $2 to $3 million in net operating income. So it's that progress is just good to be a part of. It's nice to see that type of progress in any organization. And we've done it in a unique way. I started off trying to accomplish that through getting more labs, getting more pathology practices, both trying to do that organically and inorganically. And it was just a really tough thing to do. it's hard to grow in the path lab space organically. It's pretty territorial. People want to keep the business they have, right? So we switched gears, and we've started looking at things that are on the fringes of healthcare, ancillary healthcare space, the administrative healthcare space, and we've kind of gone into a small acquisition mode, looking for things that have decent margin. In April, we closed on a company that had that. So it allowed us to get back in the black, and we're continuing to look at different types of spaces in the healthcare realm. And it's I'm not taking anything off the table, but it does have to meet certain parameters.
Success changes the game. Your business is growing. New opportunities, ambitious goals, greater impact. But growth brings complexity. More people to lead, more moving parts, less time and space to think and connect. And when leaders feel that strain, teams do too. At Cressy Leadership, we help leaders navigate those challenges. Through individual coaching, group training, and our Leadership Academy, we build the skills and strengthen the connections that make growth sustainable, helping teams communicate openly, tackle challenges together, and stay aligned on what matters most. Cressy Leadership. Envision what's possible.
Part of this opportunity here involved clearly a bunch of change.
Right.
When you jump into the leadership position, I guess, what things do you start to look at from a leadership lens of maybe this space or that space? How can we become more effective or efficient? I guess, what are some top things for you that you look at within an organizational structure?
Right. So I've had the opportunity to come into a lot of organizations that for one reason or another were failing, either from a regulatory perspective, turnover perspective, or financial. And usually it's a combination of the three in some form or fashion. But I think the first thing to do is to kind of just sit and observe, see who's who, what's what, and listen. So I usually spend a good quarter, if not 2 quarters, just trying to understand what an organization's all about, where the pain points are, and then very quickly transition to a mode of change, and that will usually include some pretty low hanging fruit. This organization is a great example of that. We had a lot of contracts with this organization that were far from favorable, so we had to renegotiate a lot of contracts, a lot of payer contracts. We had to go out and acquire more business because we just didn't have the revenue to sustain the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I answered some RFPs, and then you start looking for, as you go down, just the smaller efficiencies that come through. So we've renegotiated and redone our routes for couriers, which cost us nearly $1 million a year, and we've cut that in half. Supplies budgets that we've renegotiated, contracts with our vendors for equipment, and then you get all the way down to when we have positions that come open. Is there a way for us to work those positions into a dual role, or is there a way for us to automate this or that? And we're kind of at the phase now where as people move in and out of the organization, and we're looking at how that organizational structure can be deployed so that we'll gain some more efficiencies.
Thanks for sharing that. The title of the podcast is The Path Less Traveled. And you think about your leadership journey, personally, professionally, and I don't know how long ago that began for you, but when you think about your journey, how do you relate to that title?
Pass less travel. Well, I would say that I'm probably not supposed to be here. uh, I grew up. I was born and then grew up in a town that had, I would say, less than 100 people. I graduated with 74 people from a county high school, and neither of my parents had a degree. They actually went back and got their GEDs. I'm one of 8 cousins that graduated high school.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. So it was definitely the path less traveled. And I think it was mainly just looking around and not having anything against, family members or anything else, but seeing the struggles that they had and realizing I didn't want to have those struggles. So that was it.
So on that journey towards achievement and success, and I'm sure defining success has just evolved over the years for you. One thing that I'm actually exploring right now myself is how can we let the future me predict the present me in order the steps to get there versus letting the past dictate where I'm going. As you've been on this journey, how have you continued to just like level up, to put yourself in positions to achieve more?
I believe that I've kind of reverse engineered a lot of it, or I did up until a point. So kind of like you're saying, you're trying to essentially reverse engineer something. I had certain goals when I was younger, and I would write them down, and I would remind myself of them. And I did the whole thing. You take a picture and you put it in a notebook and you look at it every day, and that whole bit, and then you say, where do I want to be in 10 years? And then you build your education, your work, your studies around that, your relationships around that, up to a point. And now, I think I do less of that from a personal perspective, trying to level up that way. More so, I'm looking at more the businesses, and saying, okay, where do I want this business to be in 10 years? Where and less where do I want myself to be, because where that is where I'll be.
That's interesting. Looking at it through a business perspective versus a personal. How do you plan for the future of a business 10 years from now? How do you how do you approach that?
It's that's hard. I think there's certain things that obviously they'll just repeat. Everything's a cycle. I mean, if you really pay attention to what's going on in the world, we do the same things over and over again. So it's almost just a matter of timing. It will cycle back through. It's just how long will it take for that particular event to cycle back through. I can't remember who the quote was from, but the quote is, history never repeats itself, but it rhymes. And I truly believe in that. So I just I try to read the tea leaves and try to catch the cycle when it comes back. Sometimes I'm closer than others, but I think I do better than if I didn't pay attention to it at all.
Trying to read the tea leaves. Unpack that a little bit for us. As you try to stay really in tune with the business and planning for where it's going and identifying what's needed in the moment. What are some things, maybe habits, or sometimes it's the things that you say no to allow you to say yes to the things, to have that laser focus. I guess, how do you do it?
Yeah. So, thinking about this business in particular, and this business, especially the physician practice side of SBMF, we have seen Medicare cuts to physician fee schedules since I can remember. I don't see those ending any time soon, but they'll eventually end. But they'll end once there's a an event that will call for it, and that event always has to do with money. So once we get to a point where someone is struggling enough that has power in the healthcare realm, then that will change. But until we get to that point, then we'll pretty much stay on the course of, we can expect a 1% to 2% decrease in patient fee schedules.
Describe your leadership style, and then also maybe or the style that you would hope that is received by others. Right? It's one thing to think you present yourself in a way; it's another way how you're received. I guess, talk me through your leadership style.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I do really believe in giving people as much autonomy as possible, particularly if you have the right person in the position. So I've always worked pretty hard, pretty diligently to make sure that I had the right people in the right spots. And if I didn't, I worked really hard to either get that person up to par or get them out of the position. And that's, it's hard to say it's not personal, but it's not personal. This is a business. There are people that are equipped for certain positions and they're not equipped for others. So I believe it is finding people that are very well equipped for what they do, and they know it better than I know it, and putting those folks in those positions where they can thrive and where they can make the decisions, letting them make the decisions. And if they happen to make a bad decision, you say, don't do that again, because if you do that again, we're going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that I'm probably thought of as being pretty tough, pretty frank with my conversations, but also extremely transparent with folks. So I hope that that's respected. It's not always, rainbows and unicorns, but it's honest.
I think of the words, the phrase "clear is kind,"
Mm-hmm.
and unclear is unkind. Well, I asked one of your teammates. So, what's something those inside the walls of SBMF know about Tim that the broader community should also know about Tim? And this individual said, I'm not sure everyone inside the walls of SBMF know this, but he's actually a very compassionate and an altruist. Earlier this year, what a good story here. You stopped traffic. Tell me if this is true. You stopped traffic on Douglas to get out of your car to help somebody cross the street.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But that you'll step in to help when most others may not think about helping. So it's probably that side of you as well, that this individual, and some get the opportunity to see. But yeah, is that story accurate?
Yeah. And I do tend to, I tend to think that if I don't do something, then maybe no one else will. That's kind of psychology right there. If you're always expecting someone else to help, what is it? Bystander apathy. And so I try not to suffer from bystander apathy. And I would say that the folks here, that they know that I'm tough with the accountability.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm going to do the right thing, without a doubt.
You mentioned you have talked about getting involved to a business and identifying, what the needs are, and putting in the work. Before we got going here, you pulled out a screwdriver to assist with something. It seems like you're a handyman. This desire, this passion to kind of get your hands dirty. Tell me more about that and maybe where that even comes from.
I think it comes from, one thing it's therapeutic. You can think but not really think. It's the same reason I like to mow the yard. It's just things I can sit and think about nothing and everything at the same time, and kind of just role play in my own mind. And it's a great way to come up with ideas. And I do it here, pretty frequently if there's a door handle that needs to be fixed. Or this morning that we had one of our grossing bays in histology that was down, so I have a voltmeter over there and I'm trying to figure out where the power is not coming through. So it's kind of a puzzle too.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun to do those types of things.
Well, as you're looking at a thing about advice and you mentioned accountability within your team members and those that you work with, what advice would you give to a younger Tim? Someone that's just coming into a leadership position, whether it be leading a small team or a big team, but at a young age. What advice would you give to somebody that maybe you wish you would have received?
Yeah, probably the same advice so I have an 18-year-old. Really similar advice I give him. Networking and relationships are important. They're as important as what you know. People, it's cliche, but you grow up and people say it's not what you know, but who you know. And you're like, yeah, whatever. I don't really understand what that means. And then, you get a little bit older and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Not to say you don't need knowledge, but you need the opportunities that people that you're around can offer you. And building that network is vital to that.
And how has that journey been for you personally?
Building a network?
Yeah.
Tough. I'm pretty introverted. I don't like big groups. I know you and I were at the is it Millennium? The bar down.
Oh yes. We were oh gosh. Momentum Hub.
Momentum.
Gosh.
And that I showed up. That was a big step. Because I don't like big groups of people. If people want to talk to me in a group of 2 or 3,
yeah,
I'm your man. But if I have to mingle and talk to a whole group of people in a crowded room like that, I don't want to do that. I'll also get on stage and I'll talk too. I have no problem with that. But it's something about networking, in a large group that I'm not good at.
Yeah. I mean, as far as a moment or an opportunity, it's you could probably drum up enough to go do it, but to do it on a regular basis, it's usually, it's draining. A big thank you to Senior One Care for sponsoring today's episode. Founded in 2006 by Carl and Kyle Bossing, this family-owned business has provided compassionate in-home care for nearly 2 decades. If my family needed a caregiver, I'd call Kyle. With 6 Indiana locations, they give you the peace of mind while your loved ones receive the care they deserve. Learn more at senioronecare.com. As you think about the people that have impacted you along your journey, who comes to mind? Mentors, teachers, coaches, family members, partners. Who's had some of the biggest impacts on you, and maybe what was it about that individual or those words of wisdom that propelled you forward?
Well, I can think of a couple. One who really comes to mind, and I very rarely get to see him. I haven't seen him in a while. His name's Dr. Don Robertson from Murray State University. He was I believe still is the vice president of student affairs. And Dr. Robertson didn't really do anything, overtly unique. He was just the way he carried himself all the time. He was just very, very kind, just solid. He was just kind of a force at the institution that made it easy to be there. And I met him early on when I went to Murray, and he was just an easy guy to connect with. I remembered everybody's name, what they were doing, and there's thousands and thousands of kids. He was there at every event. I'm not sure he slept, but yeah, just a great guy. The other would be when I was first getting into healthcare, and this had been mid 2000s, right around the time when the Great Recession hit, and it was hard to find a job, period. And I needed an internship, healthcare internship, and I struggled. I reached out to like 100 and some odd places to try to find an internship, and Burke Stevens, she was instrumental in giving me an opportunity to have a position that would give me the experience I needed in healthcare. So I always try to remember, particularly Burke, because she was somebody that didn't have, she could have just blew me off like 100 or so other folks did. But I try to pay that forward, because it's a catch-22 there. You need experience in order to get the job, but you need the job in order to get the experience. And, that's tough, that's tough when you're starting into a new role, you just need that foot in the door.
And then that opportunity in itself then took the position, the job, allowed you to flourish. And I'm assuming maybe you didn't stay in that position, or did you stay in that position?
Not terribly long. No. I told her early on, she knew I had aspirations. But I told her early on that I wanted to always be worth 10 times what she was paying me.
Wow. And
that I've kind of kept that mentality. I want to be worth 10 times what I'm being paid, at least. And also I didn't want to waste the opportunity that she gave me I wanted her to feel like it was worth giving me the opportunity.
So in order to be 10 times worth your pay, you've got to say no to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Got to say yes to the things that matter.
Right.
I guess when you think about the things that you say no to or things you say yes to, I guess you get asked to do a lot of things. You get asked to be a part of a lot of things. Your calendar, I'm sure, is atrocious. But how do you decide what you say yes to and what you say no to? And have you figured that out? And how long have you figured that out for?
I've been pretty good about that. I had to when I was even in my 20s, I had to be pretty good at that.
Wow.
I was doing a lot, and I've always been good at organization. And as I've gotten older, I've been really good at saying no to more things than I say yes to. So I always look at it, I guess, in question, would this thing bring me joy? It's always, I always come back to that. Does it bring me joy? So I mean, I serve on a couple of state level boards in healthcare. They bring me joy because I get to participate, and I get to help write questions for board exams and things like that, which is a lot of fun for me. But the things that I don't see as either helping me advance or helping the organization advance or bringing some sort of joy, I just want to. So I also even the small things. I mean, email is something that can bog you down. I pretty much just delete most of my emails. And because most of it, and if it's a long email from somebody, I mean, the first thing I did when Copilot came out was I got Copilot so that it could give me a summary of a novel of an email that somebody sends. If it's somebody within this organization that sends me a dissertation, I will email them back and say, I'm not going to read all of this. For future reference, please make this more concise.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't think any of us, regardless of your position, I don't think we have the luxury of wasting our time, and so I just don't.
I love that. I call them the Power 5 questions. What matters? What's your why? Who are you? What do you value? And the fifth one is, what brings you joy? And I think if we'd spend significant time individually unpacking those, and not just, 10 minutes on a question, but significant time on those questions, it could change the trajectory of our lives. You've now mentioned the word joy a couple of times. So what brings you joy?
Seeing things grow, seeing things evolve and get better. I think I mentioned before we started that, just being at home and hanging pictures or TV mounts or mowing the yard. I mean, it's almost an immediate gratification. It's making something better. It's the same thing, probably at its essence, the same thing I like about turning a company around is you get to see, the fruits of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, you get to help a lot of people. You get to, mentor people. You get to, impact their lives. And, that's just kind of the icing on the cake right there. I just really like to see things grow, get better, expand, become better than what they were.
Which, hearing that response isn't a surprise to me. As we're shooting this podcast interview in your office, there's a load of books on the desk. I'm going to guess that you've got a few more at home. But as you think about growing and you think about just the impact of just books in your life, I mean, do you have some favorite books that you would recommend to leaders? Or just what are some of your favorite titles?
Well, I don't think you can go wrong with some of some of my favorite books, particularly healthcare related. Hardwiring Excellence is a great book for healthcare leaders. Just because it kind of hits on a little bit of operations, but it also hits on a lot of the psychology and organizational dynamics that exists in an organization. I would say the other one would be The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's Franklin Covey. Just a good model, and it's goes right into exactly what I like about not having to deal with the whirlwind. And that's exactly what I've done in my career, is kind of got rid of the whirlwind, and only concentrate on the things that really matter. Hence the reason I delete a lot of emails. So aside from that, just regular management books. Good to Great is obviously a no-brainer. But there's so many. Let's see. Trying to think of another one that really has helped me. I can't think of one.
That's all right. You ever thought about writing a book yourself?
Takes a lot of time.
You don't have a whole lot of that right now. Well, I've got one final question for you, and then I'll just get your final thoughts on things. Earlier, I mentioned a story about you being kind to somebody. And I'm sure there's other examples of that, plenty of other examples of that in different forms. But when you think about the question, what's the kindest thing somebody's done for you?
Well, I'll tell you another experience that I had where I stopped and helped someone.
Okay.
Just so we get this in. So I stopped and helped a group of ladies that had a flat tire, and it turns out that they were 4 nuns. So that I'm good for the next 3-4 centuries.
Hang on, you said nuns, right? Yes.
Nuns. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the kindest thing someone's done for me. I could say a lot about my wife and how much she's kind of just put her trust in me. I mean, she uprooted her entire life and moved here, and not knowing anything about it, and me being like, yeah, this company's struggling, and we're going to go up here and give it a shot, and you just got to trust me with this.
Yeah.
So that she would definitely be one. I think the other one would be Tim Stolt. Tim Stolt, my COO here. We've known each other for a really long time, since we were in undergrad together. And he's been very kind in the fact that he puts up with me and my grandiose ideas sometimes. And he's gone along on the ride with me on a lot of things. And I can't say a lot of people would put up with my madness sometimes, but no, I definitely appreciate particularly those two people a whole lot.
Yeah, Tim said Because I asked, I said, what's Tim's leadership superpower? And he said, your constant drive for high-level forward thinking and planning. And you're not slowing down. If anything, the future is bigger and brighter, and he's excited to be on the journey with you as much as I'm sure he wants to maybe pull his hair out sometimes. But that's great. I appreciate you mentioning that. I guess as we close out here, you've had the mic. You'll continue to have the mic. What final thoughts do you have as it pertains to things that are happening here, or leadership, or just, I guess, anything that you'd like to close us out with? I guess the floor is yours.
Well, I would say that this business, like any other, if you're not growing, you're dying. My worst fear in life has always been stagnation.
Huh.
I never want to stagnate. I believe that as soon as you do, then you're cooked. And that's the reason why there's so much push within this organization to grow and evolve and think about healthcare and business in a different way. Because healthcare is continuing to grow and evolve, and you don't want to get behind that 8-ball.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in my personal life. I believe that I have to continue to grow, have to continue to evolve, have to diversify in my personal life, and make sure that I don't get passed up. Because there are other people that would love to be where you are, and you want to help them get there, but you most certainly don't want to be in the back of the pack.
I actually spoke with an organization locally last week, and part of it was, as we think about maybe the greatest team we've ever been on, it could have been a T-ball team, it could have been a team in middle school, high school, college, and the elements of what made that team great, talking through that. And then what you're describing right here, this turnaround at South Bend Medical Foundation, I mean, what if, right, pursuing growth, what if this was the greatest team you've ever been on? You guys are on quite a ride. So it's awesome to hear you talk about the turnaround that you've seen in this organization, and just the push to have everybody become a better version of themselves each and every day. And that's a great environment, in my opinion, to be a part of. So I want to thank you for doing this. I appreciate your time. This was a fun conversation, and look forward to launching this.
Thanks.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Path Less Travel podcast with the president and CEO of South Bend Medical Foundation, Tim Travis. Until next week, have a great day.